I do not own the rights to this music. Hello, and welcome to Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron. Sunday School lesson for Sunday, February the 11th, 2024. Our reference material for the Sunday School Summary is based upon the International Sunday School Lesson Series as published by the Sunday School Publishing Board. We are discussing Faith That Pleases God is the title of the Winter Lesson Series, and it reviews the nature and application of faith and provides examples and observations of faith in action as applied to our relationships and our daily lives. The Faith That Pleases God lesson series is categorized into 3 units or groups of lessons, and we are in Unit 3, and we are talking about the righteous live by faith. And these discussions continue our discussions of faith by illustrating examples of how the righteous live by faith. The title of our second lesson in the Unit 3 Winter 2023-24 lesson series is titled Worth Risking Our Lives. Worth Risking Our Lives, and that is the God that we serve, the God of Abraham. The key verse comes from Daniel chapter 3, verse 28a, and it reads, Nebuchadnezzar said, Praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. So, based upon the actions of their God, it brought praise from King Nebuchadnezzar, who practiced false gods or served false gods. Now, the title of today's lesson, Worth Risking Our Lives, from the book of Daniel, and it occurs during the Israeli exile in Babylon as punishment by God for their disobedience. God withheld his power and protection, which allowed King Nebuchadnezzar, the king of Babylon, to defeat the Israelites, sack Jerusalem, and force many of the Israelites into exile in Babylon. One of these Jews was a young man named Daniel. Daniel became a very important officer in the government of Babylon. King Nebuchadnezzar made an image of gold and summoned all of the government officials to the dedication of this image, and in the assemblage of the dedication, Nebuchadnezzar proclaimed that all nations and peoples of every language were commanded to bow down and worship the image of this golden image whenever they heard the sounds of the horn, flute, harp, lyre, pipes, and all kinds of music that Nebuchadnezzar had set up. He further proclaimed that the penalty for those who disobeyed or refused to bow down and worship this golden image would be immediately thrown into a blazing furnace. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were reported to the king for violating this command, which brings us to today's lesson. The 2 summary lesson points for today are faith's risk, and that's from Daniel chapter 3, verses 19 through 23. Faith's reward, and that's from Daniel chapter 3, verse 24 through 28a. The passages for the lesson today revolve around the keywords faith, wisdom, risk, and rewards. We know that faith is the complete trust, assurance, belief, or confidence in God. It is the faith of the Hebrew children in the power of God to protect them in today's lesson. Wisdom is the ability to apply experience, knowledge, and understanding to produce good judgment. It is the wisdom of the Hebrew children to trust God in today's lesson. Risk, the possibility of loss or injury or some peril. It is the faith in God of the Hebrew children to risk a horrible death in today's lesson to uphold their faith in God. Rewards is something given in return for some action, good or evil, done or some service or accomplishment. And God's miracle of the Hebrew children in the fiery furnace is their reward in today's lesson. Our first summary point is faith's risk from Daniel chapter 3, verses 19 through 23. And in these passages, Nebuchadnezzar attempts to make an example of the Hebrew children for their defiance of his order to worship the golden image that he had built. And he says that King Nebuchadnezzar was furious with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and his attitude towards them changed. In other words, he was furious. And in order to make his point, he commanded that the furnace be heated 7 times hotter than usual for their, he thought, execution. And he commanded some of the strongest soldiers in his army to tie up Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego and throw them into this blazing furnace. And he did it with their clothes on as well, and they were bound and thrown into the blazing furnace. However, the king's command was so urgent and the furnace so hot that the flames killed some of the king's soldiers who were throwing them in the burning fire. So they became collateral damage. And the king's command, and these 3 men firmly fell into the fiery furnace, and these men being Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Faith's reward is our second summary point, and that's from Daniel chapter 3, verses 24 through 28a. And in these passages, God works a miracle to reward the Hebrew children for their faith, and in the process, Nebuchadnezzar acknowledges and praises the power of the God of Abraham. So the reward was the Hebrew children's life was saved, and also that King Nebuchadnezzar recognized and acknowledged the power of their God. And it says, then King Nebuchadnezzar leaped to his feet. He was shocked. And his advisors, and he asked them, weren't these men that we tied up and threw into the fiery furnace? They replied, certainly, your majesty. He said, look, I see 4 men walking around in the fire unbound and unharmed, and the 4th looks like a son of the gods. So Nebuchadnezzar approached the opening of the burning furnace to verify what he had seen. And he shouted at them, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, servants of the Most High God. So he acknowledged their God for saving and protecting them. He says, come out. And they came out of the fire. And all of the government officials crowded around them. And they saw that the fire had not harmed their bodies, nor was a hair on their head singed. Their robes were not scorched, and there was no smoke about them. And Nebuchadnezzar said, praise be to the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, who has sent his angel and rescued his servants. So from that, Nebuchadnezzar recognized and acknowledged the power of the God of Abraham to protect his children. This is Brother Ron with the Sunday School Summary for Sunday, February the 11th, 2024. Thank you for watching. Have a blessed week, and we hope to see you next Sunday for another edition of Sunday School Summary with Brother Ron.